You're with Sal in the Trenches MOTOLAB. Today we're removing the shock from a 2019 FC350 HUSQVARNA. We will need 2 wrenches, a 17 and a 13. We will take this nut right here off of this side and this nut on the other side. Starts by taking off the back wheel. We've covered that in a previous video. If you're interested in seeing that segment, you can go to In the Trenches MOTOLAB on YouTube and you can find that video there. Once you have the 17mm off of this side, you can push that axle through. Comes off out the other side over here. Looks like that. Just set that aside. That frees up your swing arm from your shock. So I'm going to now remove this from the other side, and that is a 13. Pull that out of there. This is now completely free from your shock. Top nut off of the top of the shock. And that is the bolt. It's holding the shock in there. Got that out. So once we have the linkage disassembled and the axles out of the pivots, we'll go to work on taking the swing arm off. First thing you got to do is get your boot guard off, your frame guard off on both sides. And behind that there's an axle that holds the swing arm on. Once frame guards are off, you're going to go to work on getting this bolt out right here. Okay, so we're trying to get this bolt out right there. This one right there. Extension, 3/8 inch extension. I kind of like the extension because then I have something in there once the axle's out, so everything doesn't just go falling on the ground. Get the axle out on the other side. Shock is out. Wow. Okay, so we've got the swing arm down. We are going to be careful with that because it's got a fair amount of tension on this line over here if you're not careful. Okay, so once we have the shock off the bike, our next objective is to loosen this collar right here. So that'll allow that spanner to turn. So you have to loosen this collar. This one actually happens to be loose. So then we'll take a spanner wrench and we will We'll loosen this. This one's turning pretty easy. Taking the preload, all the preload off the spring. All the pressure's off that spring now. We will now take and compress this top collar. There's a circlip right here. That circlip comes up and off. This retaining ring comes off. Big washer that comes off. Just set them over on the bench the way they came off. Spring comes off. Voila, spring's off. I'm going to go ahead and get some Windex or something and clean this up. Okay, we've got the shock cleaned up. Give us an opportunity to get some of the grime off of there. So, rebuild this. Just get this ring seated properly. Put the spring on so the riding reads upright when it's mounted. Big washer. That's your retaining clip. So that's how you get the spring back on the shock. Once this is back on the bike, you'll adjust your race sag with your spanner. For now, we're going to remount this back on the bike. So we have the shock put back together, sprung for my weight. Now the objective is to get the swing arm back on and to get this top axle bolt through, and that'll hold the shock while we refit the swing arm. Blue Loctite those threads. That's good. So once we get that top bolt aligned, that top through there, that'll hold the swing arm in place while we, or the shock in place while we get the swing arm on. Perfect. There. Got blue Loctite, and always put a little bit of light grease on the unthreaded part of the bolt. Blue Loctite again. Make sure you wipe the grease off your threads before you Loctite, or else your Loctite won't set up properly and won't get tight. Got 13 and a 17. Got those two tight.